remarks, and we really appreciate your joining again. To coming to the commission, we are here to promote the welfare of older adults in Arlington. And we do this through our committees, aging, equity, healthcare and wellness, housing, legislation, long-term care, and transportation. So thank you so much and welcome.
Well, thank you, Bill
Williams.
Williams, good, all right. Well, first, good morning to everyone. I feel a little worried because there's this large pillow here, and I'm used to making eye contact with everyone.
Well, feel free if you want to roll them around.
Sure, that's me, that's me. Oh. How much do? Just want to make sure everyone on the line can see. We have Dunkin' Donuts here, we're ready to go.
Hoorah.
Oh, okay. We gotta talk about the military stuff here. They see me here? Oh, they probably can see me, right?
Yes.
There. Right, okay. Well, again, good morning, everyone, and it is a pleasure to start my week off, right, with a commission. If you don't know, I'm actually within walking distance. I'm a Penrosian. We're like 2 blocks away here. My family and I have been here since 2009, Belgium, Brussels. And so I just love this portion of Arlington. All of our kids, our children went through Arlington Public Schools, so they are adults now, 31, 30, and 26. We have a 3.5-year-old granddaughter who is just like, my dad tells me all the time I get a chance to start over. Anything I messed around falling around round one. We have 2 girls and 1 boy. But it is, again, an honor to be your liaison to the county board. When in December, we had a couple of meetings. I wasn't officially, on the board yet, but there was a few meetings that I went to and I said, okay, here are the 20 some odd commissions and we're going to split them up and blah, blah, blah. And JD, where do you want to go? Put in your wish list. I will say that the Committee on Aging was one of the ones that I wanted to be a part of. And I'm just fortunate that my colleagues allowed me to part of this committee, at least for this year. Reason. What you're doing is critically important to not only our seniors, but to our community as a whole. And one thing we're looking at right now, at least I know I'm looking at, and I talked about this on the campaign trail, was are we ensuring that our commissions are, one, effective, and if so, how, right? And then we also want to make sure that we have some varied thoughts and diversity on all of these commissions. As I look at it at this commission, I am pleased at the level of not just demographics, but like I can just tell that there's a lot of richness that perhaps goes on in conversation. We need you more now. There's so many challenges, not just in Arlington, but as we look at our nation and what's going on out there. We got to have people on the lines who, where the rubber meets the road, it can be that voice of our seniors here in our community. And I have no reason not to believe that this commission is just one of the top tier commissions that we're going to be leaning on to say, hey, what's going on? How are things doing? What more can we do? Now, keep in mind, what's today's date? January what?
27.
I have 27 days on the job, y'all. Not including weekends. But if you don't know me, I am a doer, a results-oriented person. I don't, I listen, I practice empathy, but I like to move the needle. If anyone's familiar with the DISC profile assessment, my DISC profile is DI. You can research that later on Google. But that means that I will push because I think you don't get to where I'm at in all these years. It's not about being cocky or being arrogant. It's about, we want change. And sometimes, change takes a while, takes time. But when we see something, we need to say something. If something's not working right, we need to step up. We need to pivot. We need to move. Our community is not the same community that I came to in 2009. Doesn't even look the same. whether you're talking about structure, the people. We are now at 240,000 people in Arlington, and the number's going up. That means we're going to see more professionals, more families, especially our seasoned professionals, retire in place, right? They want to make sure that the community that they came to, that they decided to invest their money and their resources in, that this is a community that welcomes them and that they have the right size programming throughout, right? And I'm here to make sure that happens, given that I call myself, I tease my little granddaughter, I say, I'm a silverback. So I'm on the other side of 52 as well, all right? I'm almost there. It may not look like, but I want to be able to stay in Arlington for a long time and still have those resources and accommodations and realize that there's someone at the table that is advocating for me. Now, that being said, welcome to everyone who's coming in. I don't know it all. Don't know it all, and I'm going to be leaning on you and your chair to reach out to me at a moment's notice whenever you need me here, right? I think I have right now about 15 commissions and or regional type boards that I'm assigned to. That's on top of the regular board work that we're doing. I'm not going to make every meeting, but I will be here when you need me, okay? And so with that being said, I just want to, thank you for allowing me the opportunity, Will, to come before you and be here this morning. I also want to go back for a second. Probably should have said this at the beginning. For those of you who may not know much about me at all, let me just take a minute or two and talk about that so you'll know where I'm coming from. Born and raised in a place called Conway, South Carolina, right outside Myrtle Beach, way down in the country. My mother and father up in their age in their 70s. They're still raising chickens. We're still getting nice fresh eggs. I was down there a few weeks ago. 3 boys. So the education system wasn't the best down there in South Carolina, but somehow I made it. Senior year, I thought I was going to go play football at the University of South Carolina and be a linebacker. Things didn't happen. I ended up joining the Marine Corps. I was in the Marine Corps for 26 years, 4 months, 4 days. Who's counting? But throughout those 26 years, I had an opportunity not only to go to a lot of colleges back every time I went to a duty station, but I ended up getting my college degrees. But I traveled the world. Lived in California, lived in Texas, lived in North Carolina, went to combat in Iraq, went to Panama, been to Mogadishu, Somalia, Japan for 6 months, Brussels, Belgium, Okinawa, Japan, across the Atlantic on a ship, traveled with the Navy, served on a diplomatic assignment in Brussels, served on Capitol Hill in the United States Senate with Senator Johnny Isakson as an apolitical congressional fellow. Went back into the Pentagon, served 6 years as legislative advisor in the Marine Corps Office of Legislative Affairs. Worked in nuclear chem bio programs. Worked Intel. Work in corporate America now. Out in Tyson's, consulting management. So legislative branch, executive branch, nonprofits. Many of you have heard my name because I was the head of the NAACP for 4 years here in Arlington. When I got to that branch in 2008, I think it was 2008. That branch, no, not 2008, excuse me, 2018. That branch had 170 some people on the roads, 175 to be exact. And we had about $1,500 in the kitty. And we had a lot of our seasoned advocates, about the faithful 12, that would show up every month at the Walter Reed Community Center. And I reflect upon all of that, having gone to a bunch of meetings. I say, you know what? We can do better. So I say not me, took that civil rights organization and we built something powerful. In 4 years, we went from 175 to over 1,000. We went from having about $1,700 in the kitty, that's all funds, to almost $500,000. That was all from working in the community. No one got paid. It was about engagement. And you know what? I listened to the people that have gone this way before me. And that's what I'm gonna do here. Many of you have been in Arlington perhaps longer than I have. You know, again, where the rubber meets the road. And I want to hear from you. If we're doing something wrong, if we can do something better, if we can be innovative, we can be more thoughtful, we can be more intentional, let me know, right? When we're talking about our youth, when we're talking about our seniors, when we're talking about persons with disabilities, when we're talking about folks from our LGBTQ plus community, when we're talking about our veterans and military families, come see me. I'm here. I'm all in. All right. We will leave no one behind here in Arlington as we do this work. And I am one where, I'm going to be your voice. That's why I'm the liaison here. To come together and think about what you bring to the forefront, that we at least consider it or, in fact, make it happen. Okay. Married to my wife, Adriana Spain. She's Mexicana. We've been married almost 32 years. She'll be 33 in December. God bless her. She stuck with me for all this time. Love her to death. She is a senior employee over at the State Department, and they are going through it right now. But with that being said, again, I love Arlington. I love this work. Many of you probably also know this is, it took me a while to get here, but I will tell you, it feels almost natural for me. Yeah, there were some challenges. There were some issues that people wanted to address in the community. But for my leadership style and what I want to do and how I want to, be a public servant, this felt natural. This felt natural to me. And I love it. I love getting up and engaging with people and being their voice and making things happen and shaping good policy. And one thing you need to know about me, I'm not a single issue person at all. I can walk and chew gum at the same time. Okay, I can. So, and then lastly, I would just say, one thing we really need to work on here as not only as you speak with other commissions of issues that we have going on, we also, it's okay to have your, know exactly where you are and your left and right lateral limits and how you think. But we also need to do a better job of finding ways to compromise as a community, right? What I've seen is that, you get fractions on this portion, fractions over here, and people are just in there and they're like, what, I'm not moving. Well, let's see if we can find a way. That's what's nice about Arlington. How can we find a way to really work together in peace and in harmony? Right? If we can do that, I think we can accomplish so much. Right? All right. With that being said, I want to open up for any questions you may have of me, and then I'm going to sit my tail down because I know your business to take care of it. It's Monday morning. It's nice and brisk. Feels good out here. Yes. Any questions for me? I know there's at least one, perhaps two. Of course, it's going to be Carlos. Yeah.
So you're right. We are an incredibly diverse group.
Mm-hmm.
Our commission is proud to serve that kind of diversity, but that is not the case for the commissions.
I know.
What are you going to fix that?
What am I going to do?
Yeah.
Great question. So for those perhaps on the call, Carlos is asking me, great. The commission on agent is diverse. But our other commissions, if you look at them across the board, are not. And I will tell you that I looked at some data last week because for all our commissions that was done last week, it probably won't be alarming, but you're correct. So what we intend to do, I think, as a collective, as the board, is really be more intentional about, we're going to have some recess appointments tomorrow, but really as we're going out and looking at some of these vacancies, and looking at who's been on these commissions for certain periods of time, be more intentional using different levers of communication, engagement in the community to get folks onto these commissions, right? And I think that's also a reason why I'm here. Right? I talked about this when I was running, right? So I can also reach out in the community in different places where I believe other folks may not have been able to, right? And encourage folks to apply. And encourage folks to really, come to these commissions and be a part of it. But, when people come to these commissions and they sign up, one thing, I'll talk to all the chairs about this. Folks don't want to come and just sit down and look at a screen, twiddle their fingers. If a person's going to take an hour and a half out of their time, once a month to come and do this work, then we got to make sure we're keeping them engaged, right? And that engagement requires a certain level of leadership, right? So I'm also going to be looking at the chairs and saying, hey, what are we doing from month to month? What have we done in the past? And I'll be talking to these folks that are on commissions who are perhaps your time has expired and gathering information about how was your 4 years? What could we've done better? because I don't think we've done a really good job of reflecting upon the body of work that some of these commissions have done, and also with recruiting. So I'm gonna help do the best I can, Carlos. It is a serious conversation that all the board members are having. I know Susan Cunningham and I have talked about it a lot. So there's more to follow, and I think you're gonna see, this year moving forward, you're gonna see us work diligently in that area. And hopefully we get to a point to where sooner than later, we can actually share this data. I would love to share this data publicly so the folks from the community will know, hey, this is the makeup. We don't need to put names, but demographically and things like that, this is who's on your commission. These are who are on your commission. Because I know, and I know we can do a better job, right? It's basically, the folks who are perhaps retired, right? Who are, and they have some opportunity, they don't have any issues that we see, are large majority on these commissions. And it's a certain segment area of Arlington too, that we also are noticing. So hopefully that answers your question, but let's follow up on that and keep me honest as well, Carlos, on getting back with you and sharing some data, in due time. Okay.
Is the neighborhood college still active?
So let me get back to you on that as well, okay? Any other questions? Anybody online?
If we don't have any other questions, we can give you a little idea of the outreach and activities that we're
You need
doing.
to sit down for this.
If you want.
All right, well, again, thank you all for what you're doing. You're doing great, work. And again, call me if you need.
Great, thank you, Dave. So I'll do this. So Danielle is online to give us her very important presentation, so I'll just hit a quick bullets. So equity, which Carlos leads, we are advocating for LGBTQ older adult programs and activities, pursuing partnerships with local organizations such as clubs, podcasts, and murals. Transportation, which Catalina leads, is working on outreach to Social 60 Cafe patrons, improving safety on sidewalks, and it's important, we don't want people to fall. And advocating for frequent and reliable transportation. Health and wellness, that Kate and Kasha are leading, is working on dental care for low-income adults, improving discharge coordination with Virginia Hospital Center, and older adult mental health. Housing, that Audrey and Michael lead, is working on advocating for inclusion in affordable units and housing projects. Finalizing universal design checklists for residential developments. And long-term care, that Charlie leads, is working on establishing community advisory boards in long-term care facilities, and this is done at the Carlin and Cherrydale. And they are tracking nursing home ownership and management information for better public understanding. And we work through with our partners, many of whom are here today at this meeting. So we really appreciate your time and interest, and we hope.
William,
Yeah.
let's not forget the legislative committee and the advocacy we do with the General Assembly.
Great. Yes, thank you. So that is Anthony. He's our legislative working chair.
I will say that, with a donut in my hand, that, I see that my good friend, Adele McClure, also a mother, is not with us. So I'm quite sure we're really close. I know that, she's down in the General Assembly right now and, advocating hard for issues that are relative and pertinent to this commission. So I look forward to the session being over and she and I both being in here with you. We have some really great conversation, okay? I know you're in good hands with Adele, as far as the General Assembly goes.
Thank you so much.
Hello,
Now, that-
this is Claire Jacobson. Can you hear me?
Claire, can you hold your question, please? We need to move on to our next speaker, okay?
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Okay, so we're really pleased to be joined this morning by Danielle Aragoni. Danielle, we haven't officially met, but Erica Wood speaks very highly of you. So really wanted you to come and have the opportunity to speak to the Commission on Aging on climate resilience for an aging nation. So I'll go ahead and turn the floor to you. Not hearing you, Danielle, sorry. You were there and then now you're not.
How about now? Can you hear me?
We can hear you now. Yep.
Okay, perfect. All right. I'm going to go ahead. First of all, good morning, everyone. Really happy to be here. Thank you so much for including me. By way of introduction, I am an Arlingtonian who happens to be in Denver at the moment. So really glad to be able to be here to serve my community as I still think of it. I am going to do my best to share my screen. I hope that it will come through. Let me know when you see, hopefully, a full slide without speaker notes, so someone could give me an audio confirmation.
So I see slides, but with the
Speaker.
yeah, with the speaker
You
notes.
see the speaker notes too. Okay,
Yeah.
fine. I'll turn that off. No worries. Okay, how about now? Just the slide?
No, still the speaker
Yeah.
notes.
Oh,
Still
you
the
see
speaker notes.
Okay, let me.
Yeah.
Okay, let me redo it here. Sorry, folks. We're gonna get this. We will. And I will say this, as Helen and others know, this is a little bit of a longer talk that I'm going to kind of blitz through. So I will regret and apologize now for not being able to get to the sort of what we do about it. This is more the sort of making the case for it. Do you all see that slide? 2 arrows.
So I'm still seeing speaker notes, but it doesn't look like you turned the slideshow on yet.
Huh. Okay. I have on my side. Let me try this one more time. Oh, stop sharing. Okay. All right. I'm going to share once again. Share the window. And I will start the slideshow. What do you see now? Do you see just the title slide, hopefully?
Still the same with the speaker notes.
Really?
So,
Huh.
yeah.
And they're
Yeah.
not moving at all?
No.
change slides?
No.
Boy.
Now they are. You're on
I
slide 3
apologize.
now.
Oh, slide 3. Okay, great. All right, let's just jump in then and go with that. Again, I'm not sure what y'all are seeing, but hopefully this kind of aligns with a clear visual. Well, first of all, again, let me thank you. And again, this is kind of an expedited presentation. I would say what I'm aiming to do with this talk is really kind of make the case for why climate resilience and aging concerns go naturally together in a way of hopefully sparking action by this commission and by county leadership more broadly. So I'm assuming you now see the slide with 2 arrows. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. And only that, or you see speaker notes as well?
No, seeing the speaker notes as well, but at least we see the slides
Okay,
are on.
fine.
Yeah, that's
I'll
better.
make it
Yeah.
bigger. There we go. Okay, perfect. All right, I'm not going to touch it. So, we're kind of in the midst of these dual trends that are happening now. Obviously, we have these increasingly frequent and intense climate risks. We also, as a country, are experiencing this rapid increase in the share of older adults in communities. The reality is that very few communities, very few entities even, are making the connection between these two dynamics, and that's problematic for many of the reasons I'll talk about today. When we think about the sort of climate risks that we are experiencing now, I know we all have Southern California on our minds. I certainly do, being a Californian. Over the years, however, we are seeing a kind of a steady increase in the number of disasters and the intensity of the disaster. So one way that here in the U.S. we measure increased climate kind of evidence is through the number of billion-dollar disasters that happen each year. These are disasters that cause $1 billion of damage, in terms of property, lives lost, and the like. And the number of billion-dollar events has steadily increased. Since 1980, there's been an average of 8 or so per year. In 2022, there was 18. We had a record high of 28 in 2023, and came pretty darn close in 2024 with 27 events. And obviously, we're still seeing the effects and seeing in some of those events carry forward into 2025. So time will tell what our number looks like at the end of 2025. But also say that the frequency, the intensity of these events is pretty undeniable. At the same time, we do have a growing share of older adults. So 100 years ago, 1 in 20 people was over 65. Today, it's more like 1 in 6. And that number is continuing to increase. We are seeing older adults are among the fastest growing demographic and increasingly diverse over time with far higher growth rates in non-white older adult populations. In Arlington, it's a little bit of a special case. Arlington is a little younger than the rest of the nation, but nevertheless, from your own age-friendly plan, you are projected to see an increase, certainly of 28% just in the next 10 years or so. So while the needs of older adults perhaps are not dominating the conversation in Arlington, I'm so glad this commission exists and that J.D. Spain is in the room today, because the sort of need to address and really think proactively about the needs of older adults in advance of that growth not only keeps you in good stead with the rest of the nation, which is aging, but frankly keeps Arlington right out in front in the leadership position as it has been in so many ways for years now. The real tipping point, frankly, is going to come in just under 10 years when, as a country, the U.S. Census projects that we will be a country of more people over 65 than under 18 for the first time ever. So we really are at this kind of demographic tipping point that many local leaders, frankly, just are blind to. There are so many issues that local leaders are battling, reconciling with, but this demographic shift is a pretty important one. And I think it hasn't historically gotten the kind of attention or focus that it really merits. Part of the reason for that is because there's a kind of a lack of standard definition even of who is an older adult. Is it when we turn 50 and start getting membership from AARP, my former employer? Is it when we are 55 and get discounts to the movie theater? Is it 62, 65, 67? We have a very kind of mushy description or definition rather of what it means to be an older adult in comparison to what it means to be a youth. That's very clear. And so that kind of lack of standard definition, that lack of clarity, breeds a lot of unfamiliarity, I would say, on the part of many local leaders and many community leaders about who older adults are and what their needs are. And, what that means is that, admittedly, there's a very wide array of needs within the older adult community. It's a very diverse community. It's a very, a huge range. I mean, you think about the needs of someone who's 60, 65 compared to the needs of someone who's 80, 85, 90, 95. That's a very wide range. But there are some sort of common threads across that demographic. And I'll speak mostly to people over 65 here again, because the data is a little bit, uses different standards. But overall, in our country, 1 in 6 older adults lives near or below the poverty line. I think there's this image that, when you retire, older adults are off hitting the golf course and vacationing on cruises. That's not the case for everyone by a long shot. 98% of older adults live independently. I think there's a presumption, and I often ask audiences, how many people do you think live in nursing homes or congregate facilities? And people guess 20%, 40% of older adults live in these kind of facilities. The reality is 2% nationally. 98% of older adults live independently in the community, and of those, about 30% live alone. 1 in 5 people don't drive who are over 65, and beyond that, 1/3 have unmet travel needs. So this is, a desire to be able to be more mobile, to be more engaged in their community, and finding themselves with a mismatch between those needs and what resources are offered. 1 in 9 older adults lives with dementia, 40% have ambulatory limitations, and 80% 2 or more chronic medical conditions. So all of these, this is a challenging sort of set of conditions for anyone to kind of deal with. And when you layer that on top of some of the climate risks that we're facing, I think it demonstrates very clearly why a little bit more focus here is needed. The other part of the challenge that is impacting the way in which older adults' needs are or are not incorporated into climate resilience planning and disaster recovery is we have these 2 very different sort of disciplines that are responsible for each. So starting with the older adults, I mean, we have commissions on aging here in Arlington and in other places that are led by gerontologists and demographers and have kind of a healthcare focus and the like. Meanwhile, the folks who are working on sort of addressing our growing climate risks come from a different discipline altogether. They work in different city, state, federal offices. They operate with, frankly, different language. So there's this real disconnect between these 2 fields. and very little, and certainly insufficient, conversation about how they intersect and how they sort of exacerbate challenges. We already know that for the most part, older adults' needs are not adequately considered in community plans. I think we see that in the degree to which that people have unmet travel needs. We don't have enough public transportation, even though Arlington's is fantastic, and sort of accessibility in our transportation options that would allow for people to be engaged in their community. Many communities are faced with parks and spaces that don't well serve the needs of older adults, maybe because there's a lack of benches or restrooms or lighting or features that would serve their needs. And certainly housing. I come from, I'm a planner. I've failed to introduce myself. Apologies. I'm a land use planner. I've been in the federal government for many years at EPA and HUD. Worked at National Housing Trust, where we build affordable housing. Worked at AARP for 5 years. Housing is a consistent theme throughout all of those positions. We just don't have enough adequate, accessible housing that is affordable and increasingly climate resilient to serve the needs of older adults. So this is kind of on a good day. These are the conditions that older adults are confronting. But really what we see is that older adults bear the brunt of our climate reality in the most extreme and most tragic circumstances. When you look back over 20 years now, you can see time and time again that older adults are disproportionately represented in the fatality rates of disasters. And frankly, as I started to kind of realize this and research the book, it was stunning to me how predictable it was. And yet, we can clearly point to the fact that this is 2 decades now of this trend, and we've not seen the needle move. JD spoke of moving the needle. We've not seen the needle move here. More than 50%, 2/3, 3/4, 85% of people who die in disasters that are related to our increasing climate crisis are older adults. And frankly, that's a wake-up call. That's a clarion cry, I think, for approach. Very quickly, I want to touch on California because it is the most recent event. I often reference more recent events to kind of bring this into the current day. There's just beginning to be some analysis of who perished in the California fires. There was a story less than 2 weeks ago on this. At current time, the fires are still raging. But there was a feature in NBC News that talked about several people who passed away. They identified 27 people had perished. They gave very brief biopsies of synopses rather of 17, and of those 12 people were over 65. Again, time will tell when the ultimate data comes out, but this has been the case in the Lahaina fires, in the winter storm in Buffalo a couple years ago, in hurricanes Ian and Beryl and all the like. A lot of the common themes that you'll see as being part of the story of why these people perished is lack of effective communication, their lack of mobility, the isolation, the fact that many of these folks were living alone and didn't have sort of the network of people to support them. And in some cases, which this is kind of a new twist, this sense of responsibility that older adults felt this need to sort of protect their home, protect their community. They stayed behind. They tried to play that role, which is very much in keeping with older adults' really important, role in the community already, that sense of responsibility and obligation to serve others. Also say that our current approach to risk mitigation resilience does not adequately account for older adults' challenges to adapt to these changing conditions. I referenced health conditions, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Our current approach leaves too many people unserved or frankly, left out altogether. And for the most part, it fails to account for the fact that we have these layered risks of age on top of other vulnerabilities that are really exacerbated further by climate. Let me go very quickly just through a couple of additional, statistics. Again, I mentioned that a good number of people live in the community. One thing that is interesting to be aware of is that I think there's this presumption that older adults who live in the community, are supported by family, have the resources that they need. I will say this is where the role of villages, and I know AMV is on the line, villages, community groups, CBOs, nonprofits, aging, area agencies on aging play a huge role in allowing people to live independently and live independently well and safely. So shout out to the villages and that whole cohort, which I think often is is not even well understood by the public or by local leaders, notwithstanding present company. But the reality too is that increasingly older adults are childless. So whereas, I think it's 12% of older adults 70 and up don't have children, that number now is 20% for the younger cohort of older adults. So we're seeing this trend of, again, fewer people with children playing that sort of safety net role, which again puts even greater pressure, I think, on these community groups that are so important now to healthy aging. There are financial effects. Already older adults are really burdened with housing costs. The number of older adults who are paying more than a third of their income on housing is as high as it's ever been, and it's growing higher. And part of that is because we see the costs of insurance and utilities growing. And where maybe those were incidental costs before, they are no longer. The reality and the result is that, I apologize, some old data in here. The result is that 1 in 2 renters in the U.S. were housing costs a couple of years ago, and I'm quite confident that's similar. I mentioned that utilities and insurance are increasing. Already, utilities are kind of a burden for many older adults, particularly those on a fixed income. $7 million people actually had to forego essential costs in order to pay for their utilities, according to one study. And increasingly, particularly for low-income families, the cost of utilities really does eat up a bigger and bigger share of annual income, 8% by one estimate, whereas for the sort of median income family, it's more like 2 or 3%. Again, I mentioned that the cost of insurance, that's been a lot in the news lately, particularly in California. Private insurance companies are loath to share that data, but FEMA, which offers the National Flood Insurance Program, is public, obviously. They've made efforts to increase the sort of data accuracy of their projections. As a result, premiums are going up. What that means in real terms is someone who lives in Louisiana who currently pays $842 a year for flood insurance pretty soon will pay over $5,000. Again, these are just not costs that many older adults can easily bear. And the result of that is that people will either underinsure themselves or not insure themselves at all, which ultimately can lead to really distressing financial conditions. And finally, not least by any stretch, is the health impacts. And I'll just focus on health as one example. Extreme heat is perhaps the most dangerous part of our climate reality for older adults. 12,000 people die each year because of health-related deaths, and of those, 80% are older adults. So once again, time and time again, you see that the older adults just are being disproportionately impacted by climate. So what is it that we could do about it? I can't summarize the book sufficiently in a little bit of time, but I do want to just kind of give a few, general pointers and really encourage you to maybe read more and learn more. One is we have to begin with an acknowledgement that climate change impacts older adults differently. It's just kind of the reality, and I think going into discussions around resilience and rebuilding post-disasters and how we think about our climate future has to begin with an acknowledgement that climate change will impact our older adult community differently. And it's not just in disasters, it's on a sort of a recurring basis. When you think about last summer in the stretch of heat or this winter in the stretch of cold, those are not disasters per se, but they are impacting older adults differently. We also have to acknowledge and recognize that institutional and individual preparedness is not enough. Absolutely, there's a role for people to prepare themselves, but the needs go beyond what many institutions are capable of doing here. I think of villages, for example, who are very effective in getting people to doctor's appointments and doing changing light bulbs around the house and making it possible for people to age in place. They're not equipped to help people rebuild from disaster or make their home more resilient or install, solar panels that would provide a renewable source of energy. It goes well beyond what many organizations are capable of and have the resources to do. And finally, therefore, it's very important that we really lean into community resilience solutions that benefit people of all ages. Like much of the work that we did and that ARP still does when I was there, we go into these ideas and often say these solutions work really well for older adults, but they really do benefit people of all ages, and that is certainly the case for this as well. And what I mean by that is, more climate responsive infrastructure investments, more green infrastructure, better ways of sort of accommodating flooding, greater investment in renewable energy, Certainly a wider array of housing choices, really doubling down on compact, energy efficient, attached often homes that reduce energy costs, but also kind of create that social network that people can really benefit from in times of disasters, ensuring that housing is affordable and accessible. Ensure a lot of this, is already part of what Arlington is so well known for, really continuing to expand the transportation alternatives, bus service, train, but also paratransit and volunteer driver services, and increasingly walkability and bikeability. All of those investments are investments in community resilience that serves the needs of older adults and others. And perhaps most importantly is improved communication between and during disasters. One of the stories from the California wildfires was a granddaughter talking about her grandmother, I think, who had perished, saying, she's not a cell phone kind of person. She wasn't getting these notifications. So it really means kind of applying a fresh lens to how we communicate with people about risks and making sure that we are being comprehensive in our approach. I want to end with kind of a positive note because some of this could be challenging. About a year ago, a group of older Swiss women, also 65 or older, sued their government to say that their government had not done enough to protect their civil rights because they had not done enough to protect against heat specifically. They won. They won in this European court, and that was a real victory, not just for the women in Switzerland, but also kind of for the field. It demonstrates that, first of all, older adults can and are leading. It demonstrates that we can make the case successfully that older adults' needs are a way to push through some change that benefits everyone. And hopefully the effects of this kind of court case will trickle on down throughout the world. I know that was very fast, and I apologize, but if you're interested, I encourage you to maybe pick up the book and read a little bit more. It goes into a lot of detail about housing. Many of the committees you have, housing, transportation, communication, health, are sections in the book that I talk about explicitly. So with that, I will stop and answer questions. I apologize for the speed.
All right, well, thank you so much, Danielle. Do we have any questions for Danielle? JD.
I'll only deal to the members first, in case they have y'all.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm curious, you're with the EPA, correct?
I currently am, but I will, yeah, this presentation is not pertaining to my EPA job, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I guess I was just curious about how currently the federal government is working to coordinate efforts to address this across, FEMA, HUD, EPA, the Administration for Community Living, et cetera, to address these issues, and that might be trickling down to local community levels, if at all.
One slide that I took out in the interest of time, and I apologize, was looking at how FEMA and HUD guided does or does not account for older adults' needs. And I could say pretty easily that the FEMA guidance that dictates state hazard mitigation plans does not mention aging explicitly. HUD's programs that implement billions of dollars of disaster recovery also do not require any specific consideration of aging. So I'd say there's a real gap there on the federal side. And you're absolutely right. It does affect what happens at the state and on down level. Similarly, also kind of, put some responsibility on the case of the aging world. The aging world has not said we need to be involved in climate conversations. We need to be involved in disaster recovery and disaster planning. That is an opportunity for the aging world to kind of do more well. So I think there's a bridging of those two worlds that needs to happen, which frankly is part of the reason that I wanted to offer this book.
Thank you.
Do we have any other questions from the audience here or online? JD has a question.
Well, one, thank you, Danielle, for your brief, and I just, for folks in this room, I was making some notes and I want to hear your thoughts. So last year, Arlington was noted as being one of, in fact, the USA Today poll said we're the #2 most climate resilient community in the nation, wherever that data set may be. But, #2 is not #1, so that tells me there's always room for improvement. I'm not sure if you're aware, but there was a update on our Destination 2027 in December. And I'm so happy to hear you talk about disparities. And just for this audience, I think we should note that even in Arlington, the health disparities that we notice, a lot of times depends on exactly where you live, right? Destination 2027, when it was updated, noted that, in some of our marginalized communities, now there's an 11-year difference. And a lot of that is tied to, you know, how we build, where we build, heat islands, et cetera. And I don't know if this is more so for you, Danielle, I'm just bringing this to the full audience before the commission, like, what are our thoughts? What are we looking at, engagement in some of these areas and educating and informing folks about the dire consequence of not doing anything in this, when we're talking about community. And we can look at initiatives like the tree canopy campaign, right, that we're doing that can help, and there's a whole host of other things, but are we aware of that Destination 2027 update?
Yes.
We talked about it here
Yes.
as a commission.
The healthcare outcomes are based on zip codes. And
Zip codes, right, and some of that is also tied to climate.
I'll give a chance to our health and wellness folks if they want to address that, but I don't want to put you on the spot. So, but they are addressing dental care for low-income folks, and we'll put this on our calendar too.
Well, also mental health is an area we're focusing on, and that's like one of the primary problems that result from climate change with older adults and facing depression, anxiety, trauma, etc., and dealing with the aftermath. So that is an area that we're exploring. But we're not focusing specifically on solutions for, I mean, I guess like our senior centers, those are considered cooling centers, right? Seniors can go there when it gets super hot. I think we need to think about other solutions like that across the county. And maybe you are, that we're not aware of, and I'm not as familiar as I should be with Destination 2027.
Well, I think we're great Destination 2027 and the age-friendly action plan. I didn't realize there was an update to it. But I will say some of the things that we do as sort of the Department of Human Services and Aging and Disability. In September, we try to work with the Department of Public Safety, Communications and Emergency Management, going into different communities. We've been in McCarland, Claridge House, some of our independent living residences. We invite the Red Cross, the Animal Welfare League, because pets are an important part of emergency planning and preparedness. But that's really an individual focus. The other thing that the Agency on Aging does is with some of the visits, the monitoring visits that we do with our vendors, we do talk about emergency planning. Home health agencies, do you have an emergency plan? Some of the long-term care residences, I know you might want to talk with the administrators, and Cherrydale recently with the weather, the inclement weather, responded and utilized their emergency plan. But there's always work to be done. And Danielle, I made a little note, maybe we could do a book club later this year. I'm thinking, you know, Wendy, not to put you on the spot, but maybe with libraries, because I do think we need to look more broadly as a community as how are we addressing this, and not just with individuals. It's great to have a plan, but as a community, how are we looking to address it?
Good question.
Yeah,
Yes,
I love that. I think it's a great idea. I think it's a great idea. A lot of the things you all have talked about are things I kind of touch on in the book. And I think it's always interesting to see what sparks in terms of things that have already been done in Arlington, but also ideas from other communities. I'm thinking about New Orleans and their approach to community lighthouses, which is their version of resilience hubs, and what lessons might be applicable to Arlington. So I think it's a great idea.
I think Wendy had her hands up first, and then Peggy. Hey, Wendy, you're on mute.
Cannot hear you, Wendy.
No.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I actually expected Helen to raise her hand first, but just, you know, one of the things that's going on is the Community Engagement Forum has a theme of safe at home, which does speak to emergency preparedness. So the commission is going to be addressing that in just a couple of months, and is working on a phenomenal, you know, Helen is leading the effort to work on a phenomenal agenda for that event. But I'd also, you know, take this a little bit of a next step in terms of emergency preparedness, and just, it's always important to me to think locally. You know, something like climate change is such a huge issue, and how can you affect it individually? But in terms of emergency preparedness, I mean, we've been aware of, when someone lives in an apartment building and all of a sudden there's a small fire and the alarms go off and older adults have to get downstairs to the lobby using the steps. There's no effort to figure out how to help people who can't do that easily get down, nor tell them when it's over, stop coming down the steps. You can return to your apartment. So there are lots of things I think we can think about doing that are perhaps small steps, but they can lead to bigger actions long term.
Thank you, Wendy. Becky?
My question is with, Arlington County. Do we have anything in place, that offer grants or some type of subsidies for, home modifications for our seniors who, just like everyone knows, I'm a senior, I'm on a fixed income. I live in a single family home. I've been living by myself for a long time since my husband passed in 2018. My grandson just moved in with me. They think I need so much help. So the key point here is there are a lot of seniors in Arlington County that still has to pay their mortgage. They still have to pay their utilities. So they have a lot of economic issues that they have to look at. Do we subsidize and make their homes or improve their energy efficiencies, disaster resistance to help them? How do we get to them? How do we teach them?
So a couple of things that come to mind. So first of all, we have a really excellent partnership with Rebuilding Together. Okay, so that's usually our first line of defense. We'll refer folks to them. They can do things like building ramps. They can do minor in-home updates. So like grab bars in the shower, or maybe fixing a rail on the stairway, things like that to help, shore up the home to make it safer. Right? And I think I'm not quite as familiar with this. I think Rachel's got a little more information. Community planning has some home modification grants. And then, there is a focus, I know, in the work that we're doing with our, from the state and federal levels with home modification programs and making sure those are included in our programming. So it's something that we're looking at for the future. But I don't know if you want to say anything about it.
Yeah, we could invite our friends from community planning and housing development to do a presentation on some of the resources that are available through their programs. I think the challenge is that some of the grants are so limited and some of the modifications are quite costly and expensive. But I think it's worth noting too is grants around energy. I know that there are more for like developments of larger scale buildings, community centers. But it's something we can share with them and maybe invite them to a future. And yeah, and then we put them together a little community engagement forum. They're as Helen said, a tremendous partner. They are a nonprofit organization. Anyone can make a referral, but we'll be sure to include those resources in the follow-up. So we'll
So JD, as you can see, we have hold on a second, please. We have a great relationship with our DHS partners and great working relationship with the experts. So I see Carlos's hand was up. Somebody else online? Audrey, okay. And Audrey, and somebody say something online?
Danielle, were you trying to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to underscore the point about the home modifications and that kind of an intervention, which is targeted to both improving the housing stock that does immediate benefits for the older adult residents, saves energy and the like, improves health, also serves to convert the housing stock for the community as a whole over time. So you're ending up with a more resilient housing stock for the community, but it takes some tailored application to make sure that those programs work for adults. So I was just going to applaud that mention. Also encourage you to really think about that and don't assume that just because an energy efficiency program is available for the community as a whole, don't assume that that's necessarily going to work for adults. Oftentimes there's a little bit more sort of curation and connection that's required.
Thank you, Danielle. I'm going to go to Audrey and then I have Carlos and Charlie. Go ahead, Audrey.
I wanted to know, Danielle, if you know of any counties or states that have done any emergency preparedness scenario exercises.
There are a lot of places that are doing emergency preparedness scenarios. I would say in my mind, emergency preparedness is a part of resilience. It's absolutely an essential sort of precursor, if you will. And so I would say it's not uncommon. I think there's drills, there's tabletop exercises, things like that. I think that's a fairly common exercise. I think what often is learned in those is that, and I would challenge some of the sort of emergency managers here, again, not Arlington, I think other places, emergency management tends to think of meeting needs by addressing the needs of nursing homes and congregate living facilities, not by thinking about how we might serve those people who live in their own in the community. So that's, I think, where sometimes these exercises fall short.
Oh, so I'm glad that JD mentioned about comment about disparities. There are disparities in relation to emergency preparedness for people who don't speak English. There's a question of trust, and with what's happening right now in our landscape, trust is being eroded even more so. So going to any kind of government entity is going to be very challenging for those communities that don't speak English. One, an observation, but two, I have a naive question. Are self-driving cars good for the environment, and are they good for older adults?
Ooh, that's a big one. That's not an easy question. There's pluses and minuses, right? I mean, they certainly have been touted as a real miracle solution for older adults. The problem is that people need a little bit of extra help getting in the car, exiting the car. That doesn't happen with self-driving cars, whereas it might with a different option. I personally, my personal bent is that public transportation is a more efficient and equitable solution than self-driving cars. It's better for the environment. It can be more affordable and economical. But, you know, I was in California not too long ago and saw Waymo cars driving around picking up people. So I don't know that we have much of a question in terms of, you know, is it happening? I think it's going to happen. It's just a matter of how we manage it in our communities.
Charlie? Go ahead, Charlie.
Danielle, thank you for highlighting this issue. I want to circle back to how federal agencies coordinate that Kathleen asked the question about. One resource that you're probably aware of, but I'm not sure that they have really looked at this issue, is the Elder Justice Coordinating Council, which was created by the 2010 Elder Justice Act. And it brings together some 16 federal agencies under the coordination of the Administration for Community Living. It was originally created to look at elder abuse issues, but more generally, it looks at harm to elders. And this is really an issue right in that target that I don't know that they've really looked at. So in the groups that you deal with, it might be a terrific resource to reach out to educate.
Yeah, I think that's very, in a way, that's not surprising. Again, as I mentioned, I think the aging advocate community has not really thought much about sort of climate and climate resilience and disasters yet. I think it's increasingly becoming hard to ignore. But I think, to your point, the Elder Justice Act wasn't necessarily passed with climate in mind, but it's definitely applicable. When we think about looking at the years of older adult experience and challenges getting FEMA assistance, that's a perfect case right there of how some of our services don't serve the needs of older adults sufficiently.
Thank you, Danielle.
I do have to run in like 2 minutes. I apologize.
Yeah, no, so yes, I want to thank you very much, Danielle and JD, both of you for joining us. So really appreciate it. Gave us a lot of food for thought and motivation to for our future activities. So you're welcome to stay on, but we're going to move on to other parts of our agenda. So thank you both so much. So Michelle.
So let me just do a quick introduction. So Michelle Thomas, you've all seen her here in the meetings. She helps out a lot with the aging equity, but Michelle's primary job is as coordinator of our Virginia Insurance Counseling and Assistance Program, which provides unbiased, free counseling on Medicare options. And so last month I mentioned the end of the open enrollment period and that we had quite a few more people than we've been seeing, you know, for the last few years coming and seeking guidance from our Medicare counselors. And so I asked Michelle if she would come and speak about just some highlights from our open enrollment period for 2024. So over the next 15 minutes, Michelle will give us some insights on what she saw this year and kind of some future thoughts as well. So Michelle, thank you. The floor is yours. If you want, so Rachel's sharing her screen, so if you want to stand and present, thank you.
I mean, which is the best. I feel like my back is towards the.
So your back is towards the screen, but the cameras are actually right in front
Yeah,
of you, the owls, so
Okay.
they're seeing your face online, so.
Morning, everyone. It's so good to see you. I'm excited to be able to share information, updates, and highlight about Arlington County's VICAP program. Thank you so much to some team members that are here in the room and online. My name is Michelle Thomas. I serve as the program coordinator of the Arlington County Virginia Insurance Counseling and Assistance Program, also known as VICAP. And today we're going to talk about the Medicare 2024 open enrollment highlights. In addition to the health benefit tours our team has been conducting, but specifically for this past 2024 open enrollment period, outcomes and impact, and then recommendations for consideration. So cheers to Arlington County's VICAP team. We are a part of a national network. There are 54 state health insurance and assistance programs across the United States of America, to include Washington, D.C., Puerto Rico, Guam, and the U.S. Virgin Islands. So in each locality and jurisdiction, we do have a counterpart, including across, of course, Northern Virginia. And the goal for each program is to counsel individuals who are Medicare eligible. We do also counsel individuals' caregivers. We've started to counsel more Arlington County employees, Arlington County public school employees, and then we also have started to see an influx of individuals who are federal retirees come to our program seeking how their health insurance works with Medicare. I'd like to talk about our staffing and the way that it's designed. So across the state health insurance and assistance programs, each team is designed to also have a team of dedicated volunteers, staff, and/or contractors. Each program is designed very differently, but our team consists of the full-time program coordinator, which is myself, one part-time VICAP counselor. Hi, Jordan, I see you on the call. And then through VICAP's expansion funds, we have one seasonal part-time counselor. Not sure if Galari is on the call, but definitely wanted to give her a shout out as well, because she's been such a great advocate, champion, and wonderful team member for all the work that we continue to do. I don't know if some of you recall, but through the advocacy that went forth with InVan, myself, along with other coordinators across Northern Virginia, were able to advocate and have $600,000 approved for funding so that each VICAP program across Northern Virginia could increase their funding and staffing so that we could serve more residents in each jurisdiction. So that's where the expansion funds have come in. We're blessed again to have Galari Basiri specifically on our team provide additional services, mostly through the open enrollment period, which is October 15th through December 7th, although the funds have been expanded for her to continue to support the program through July.
No. That doesn't, the fund, so there's no more funds.
The expansion funds. The expansion funds were included in the governor's budget.
Gotcha.
And so each year we're able to have additional staffing and support. We've chosen, or they've chosen Galari Basiri, who's a certified VICAP counselor, to be able to continue to assist our program. She primarily assists during the Medicare open enrollment period, October 15th through December 7th. But somehow maybe Helen can speak to this.
So it's a pot of money each, so it's $600,000 across the state. So each locality, they divided it equally, gets $25,000.
Okay.
So, we can keep Galari on as long as that $25,000 hasn't run out. And
Sure.
That's the situation.
Thank you.
Yeah.
And before we move to the next slide, I do want to give a big shout out to our volunteers. We have a core team of 8 volunteers. I see Charlie in the room. He's one. I think Michael Schuster is online. That's another. But I'm so grateful to have each team member
who is dedicated and committed to advancing the mission and the goals of the VICAP program. We were able to continue to, and I'll speak to this in a minute, not only help Arlington County residents, but constituents across the state, which was a huge win. There is always opportunity and a need for additional volunteers, and that's where the advocacy could go forward. So as you're in different communities, if you see other people who may be interested in volunteering for the VICAP program, go ahead and share information, and I'd be happy to talk with them. As it relates to the requirements to become a volunteer and or serve as an Arlington County certified Medicare counselor, there is an initial exam that's required. After taking the initial state exam, there is an annual exam that's also required to pass. That's required as well. So a person has to achieve 80% or higher on the state exam with no more than 2 attempts to be able to counsel residents in their specific jurisdiction. In addition to the initial and annual state exam that's required, there's also the local and state clearance. So when individuals come through the Arlington County VICAP program, they are required to work with myself and the Human Resources Department for a background check. But then after that's cleared, there's also a background check that has to happen at the state level. The State Corporation Commission's Bureau of Insurance conducts their own background check. And it is a requirement for each person who wants to fulfill this role that they are also not a licensed broker. And so after those 2 requirements are met, then the process is open for us to move forward with the interviews as such for the individuals to start counseling. As it pertains to the Medicare open enrollment period, there are 3 main objectives that we focus on. So again, this period is between October 15th and December 7th. The first objective is to review coverage with individuals to make sure that they have a plan that works for them, so that the plan not only meets their health and financial needs, but it also, of course, covers all of their prescription drugs and is the best plan that can be considered for the following year. If it's determined after the assessment is conducted that there is another plan that either that costs lower or may cover their prescription drugs, then that is the opportunity for us to work with the individual to be able to make changes. We do utilize the Medicare Plan Finder to be able to do that, but also call and leverage the opportunities to coordinate with the prescription drug plans that the person is considering. And after that, of course, we are always looking at ways to be able to ensure coverage options. And sometimes individuals are choosing original Medicare, sometimes they choose Medicare Advantage plans, it all depends. But again, I do want to emphasize that this year, not only have we assisted individuals who are Medicare eligible, who have Medicare, but we've also seen an uptick in working with individuals who are federal retirees. And so we've also assisted individuals with switching their FEHB plans and yielding cost savings that way as well. I do want to spotlight the health benefit tours. Arlington County VICAP team went out into the community and we targeted specific zip codes this open enrollment period, covering ground at Arlington Mill Community Center, Arlington Mill Residences, Culpeper Garden, Hunters Park. I'm working with Rachel, and thank you for the opportunity to join you at Path Forward Homeless Services Center, the Terraces at Arlington View, the Shelton Residences, and Walter Reed Community Center. I think I saw Jessica Vasquez on the call. Thank you so much for the coordination and opportunity to be able to work with you and a lot of our team members at the Parks and Rec site. We do appreciate it. This year was key in that we were able to work with our colleagues in the Aging and Disability Resource Center and provide information and resources, not only on VICAP programs, AAA programs, and then I've also the individuals in the ADRC provided information and resources specifically on the Benefits Enrollment Center, which was a huge win. Because when the one-on-one counseling sessions were going forth, after those sessions completed, we were able to walk individuals over to staff in the ADRC, who then gave them information and resources on benefits that they could potentially consider and or enroll in. So for example, we were over at the terraces at Arlington View, and there were two colleagues that were working together to help an individual change their Medicare plan. One of the residents talked about needing another knee surgery. And so after the counseling went forth, we were able to get her connected, of course, to one of the team members who helped her get some in-home services in place so that she could have more services and more of her needs met. In addition to the one-on-one counseling, the email management, phone calls that come in, and of course, conducting the clinics, our team also engaged in speaking engagements with Aging Matters Radio. We were invited to come to Langston Brown Community Center for the Hyde Park, to speak before the Hyde Park community residents. And then we were invited to speak at the Unitarian Universalist Church. At each opportunity, of course, we shared information about the Medicare open enrollment period, provided information about the Benefits Enrollment Center, and then other ways that people can get connected to programs and services to better meet their needs. Let's focus on the outcome and impacts of the work that went forward. So again, these stats are specific to the open enrollment period, which is between October 15th and December 7th. During that time, we served 309 clients. So in addition to, of course, serving individuals who reported their race as white or African American, we were able to serve individuals who reported their race and ethnicity as Hispanic, Korean, and Ethiopian. We had 8 outreach events. And then with all of the clients that we served 134 clients who classified as hard to reach populations, which is an increase of 23% from last year. Out of the 134 individuals who identify as hard to reach populations, 43% of their income fell below the federal poverty level. 26% of the clients we served had a primary language that was not English. And then this year we had 119% increase in cost savings. So during the 7-week period, we yielded $155,304, primarily due to the changes in Part C, which is Medicare Advantage, Part D, Medicare prescription drug coverage. We were able to get people connected to Medicaid benefits, and then of course, patient assistance programs. There were a few cost savings that were yielded due to appeals from ambulances, and then of course, the individuals that I talked a little bit about earlier who are federal retirees who were able to switch Blue Cross Blue Shield plans that yielded a cost savings as well. So I want to give our team a shout out. This is really in addition to supporting our colleagues across, and of course in the county, we were able to support our colleagues across the state. So since COVID, there were some VICAP programs that have not been able to build and recruit contractors or volunteers. And between October 15th and December 7th, somewhere about that time frame, some of the programs raised their hand to state that they were at capacity and could not take any more calls. The state director then reached out to see which programs across the state could support our colleagues. And so, of course, we raised our hand to say that we could. 10% of the clients that we served live in Alexandria, Fauquier County, Fairfax County, Henrico, Newport News, Shenandoah, and Williamsburg. So a huge kudos and shout out to our colleagues and team for being able to support our colleagues across the state. As we consider closeout and consider recommendations, areas for policy considerations, there is a need, an advocacy need for us to continue to work with our colleagues at the local and state level specifically to enhance access to benefit programs. Part of the challenge is that some of the income and resource limits are so low, specifically for the low income subsidy programs and then the Medicare savings programs. So if there is an opportunity, and I know Ann Van has been a great champion, if there is an opportunity to advocate, at least at the state level, so that some of these income and resource limit programs can be increased, that would be fantastic. And then there's also an opportunity to advocate at the state level to establish a prescription drug affordability board, all to be able to help individuals pay for expensive medications. And with that, I'll close.
Yeah, do we have any questions for Michelle? So, thank you, Michelle, for all the services that you provide. Thank you for being a great colleague. Thank you for being a great partner to the Commission on Aging. So,
Thank you.
much appreciated.
Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us today.
Yes, yes,
Really
you're
appreciate it.
welcome. Great presentation.
All right, everyone. Next, we're gonna move on to approval of the December minutes. I hope everyone had a chance to read. Do I have a motion to approve?
So can I just note that there are two corrections to the minutes that we made. So first of all, we're going to spell Audrey's name correctly, and I apologize for that, Audrey. And then we also listed Commissioner Way instead of Chair Way, so that adjustment will be made as well, but just two very minor changes to the minutes.
All right, I'm glad you caught it. So yes, do I have a motion to approve those? Audrey, second? Second. Kathy? All right, all in favor? Any opposed? Meeting minutes are approved. Thank you so much.
So
Yeah, so we're gonna go to public comments. Is there anyone here to make any public comment? Seeing none, we're gonna move on to staff reports. Thank you, staff. You guys are always the pride and joy of the COA, so really appreciate it. I hope I made that clear to JD. So Helen.
we're actually going to flip the order this time.
Okay, my moving.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Good morning, everyone. It's good to see you in person and online. I'll be brief. We are continuing as a department to work on our racial equity work. We continue to prioritize that for all, and we are committed to serving all residents and looking at the vulnerabilities and the risks. And Anita is very committed to this, and so has given us very clear guidance. And so we have a lot of committees that are supporting this effort. In aging and disability services, we're continuing to deepen our work in community engagement efforts. I'm very proud of the teams, such as VICAP and Michelle's work, Rachel, Helen, our CSBs, which is Mental Health Services, Tanae, and Benefits Enrollment. So you're going to see more of our presence in the community. We know that outreach is necessary to deepen. So we're very committed and looking forward to the upcoming community engagement forum. Are there any questions for me?
Did you want to ask your question that you
Well,
earlier?
It's a
You can hold on.
It's a bigger conversation,
Okay.
yeah, just I'm hearing from colleagues of national organizations that are federally funded, that they're changing a lot of what's on their website, reports. because of some of the DEI changes coming from the federal level. So I just wondered if that has trickled down, hopefully not, because of all the federal dollars that the county receives through Older Americans Act and other, federal funding opportunities. Hopefully not. Because I mean, just what, what
So,
we presented is so amazing in terms of the outreach. We don't want to see that in. But it is happening at, national organizations like NCOA, US Aging, et cetera.
Okay, is that something that you want to have a conversation?
Yeah,
later?
it's just something just to keep on the radar, but hopefully impact the local outreach.
Right, we're monitoring closely and that doesn't change the efforts that we're making in Arlington County and our department. So we're still very focused.
Thank you, Mamuna. Do we have any other questions for Mamuna? Rachel?
No, I can just share, I mean, echoing my Mona's commitments, as a department, we've continued to center race. We have data that supports who benefits from our services, who is missing, and the impact. So I think as Jamie mentioned, we celebrate the diversity of this commission. I think, Carlos, to your point, we need to replicate, but there is so much strength in diversity and unity. And so we do want to continue to celebrate that. But there are concerns at the federal level. We are monitoring closely. Two items that I do want to mention. We were so close to reauthorizing the Older Americans Act under the last Congress. Unfortunately, it did not cross the finish line. So we are maybe opportunities for advocacy that either they can reauthorize the Older Americans Act. This is the federal piece of legislation that requires this board, this commission. It funds many of the community services programs that older adults receive, caregiver support programs. So they can either pass it as it is or take up a whole new bill. So we'll closely monitor what that looks like. The other thing is, as many of you have probably heard, is there have been some proposed pieces of legislation and potential funding reductions to programs that really benefit and support older adults that include SNAP benefits or what's known as food stamps. Medicaid is another option. There's some discussions about either reducing funding, maybe changing the eligibility requirements. But I looked at some of our stats. Our social workers, pretty much with adult services, and our nurses with the nurse and case management program, they conduct what's called pre-admission screenings for Medicaid waiver programs. And they average 25 screenings per month. And that provides access for people who are living at home in the community to receive in-home services from a paid professional caregiver. It could be a family member. It may be a screening to go into an assisted living, like Mary Marshall or Culpeper Garden. It could be a screening to go into a long-term care community like Cherrydale. So it's 25 a month, over 300 last year. But this is primarily how older adults, persons with disabilities, remain in the community, remain safe. And Danielle mentioned that it's 98% reductions in that program, reduction in hours could impact that. And living in a long-term care setting is also pretty expensive as well, and it's not often somebody's primary choice. So those are things that we are closely monitoring. Helen has shared in the past some of our concerns about the funding for Meals on Wheels. There's also conversations about impacts on what's known as the social services block grants. That's how a lot of programs fund nutrition services. If they were to shift that into any kind of changes for that, that really wouldn't address the growing need that we're seeing for some nutrition programs. So we are closely monitoring some of these changes. We'll share when there's opportunities for advocacy. And we know it's kind of a balance of trying to stay informed and aware, but it's also a lot of information. And sometimes we just need to take a break and step back from the news. But we will stay involved, informed, and share information with you all as we receive it. Another item that we're following closely is housing and the homelessness for older adults. I think probably the last 3 years, we've shared that this is a trend that we continue to see growing. The Aging and Disability Resource Center, under Tanae's leadership, is averaging 30 referrals to shelter each month. This continues to grow. Kasha can probably, I don't even know. We need to get you chocolates and donuts every morning because the challenges with older adults, with people with serious medical needs that are in the shelter is growing. And one of there's a few of the ways that we've addressed it. Michelle mentioned the Benefits Enrollment Center. Through that grant from the National Council on Aging, we have a homeless prevention specialist. We've been working with Path Forward to designate some transitional housing options for individuals. And then True Ground Housing, which used to be known as APA, has provided us some dedicated units for apartment units, housing units for older adults. And we bring in wraparound supportive services. And we've been really successful with 4 units that are housing 6 older adults. So we're looking really creatively of how to address this. But one request that I have, we had an individual show up to our office 2 weeks ago when it was 27 degrees. The only thing she was wearing was a hospital gown and socks. We are looking at kind of building a clothing closet. So if you have any lightly or gently used like coats or jackets, please connect with me. We'd love to sort of build, just to have some clothes that, this individual was then we were able to secure shelter and care for this individual. But again, this is how sometimes people are coming to us, and we want to try and at least make sure we can address some of their basic needs. And then the last thing that I want to mention, and Charlie, thank you for the creative response, is that I shared the AARP Community Challenge grants. Those are grants that can range from $2,500 up to $25,000. And some of the options focus on things like Danielle mentioned, community resilience, pedestrian safety, digital connection and digital literacy, and then housing design competitions. So we'll send that again in the follow-up email, but the grants are due March 5th. So I'll pause there and hand it over to Helen for a few updates.
Oh, great. All right. So the things from the Agency on Aging. So first of all, planning for the 2025 Community Engagement Forum is continuing. The event will be held at Macedonia Baptist Church this year. It will be from 9:30 to 12:30, and our theme is Safe at Home. We've confirmed Joanna Shin from True Ground Housing and a speaker from Arlington County's Child and Family Services who will talk about safety across the generations. So we're confirming a 3rd speaker to focus on emergency planning and safety, hopefully this week. So a big, huge thanks to everyone who's been helping us do the planning for this event. And it's going to be really great. I'm really excited about it. So our next meeting is scheduled for Thursday, February the 6th at 10 a.m. Via Teams. You should have received an invite. If you want an invite and haven't received it yet, please just let me know. I'm happy to.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.
If you haven't been to one of these before, I really encourage all the commissioners to take an active role, maybe at one of the remote sites or the main site, but please come.
Thank you, Audrey. Okay, so sort of continuing on with what Rachel was saying, our Aging and Disability Resource Center continues to see a high and increasing volume of calls and walk-ins. It's just remarkable to me. So we have 8 slots a day for walk-ins, and the number of days that those have been filled is more days are filled now than not, where it used to be kind of the opposite before. So it was usually pretty rare to fill all 8 slots. That's becoming a more frequent event. Food security, emergency financial assistance, and in-home services are the top 3 categories, and they make up 82% of the requests that we get. So, it just continues to be high intensity and high volume for the staff at the ADRC. So big shout out to them. They're doing an amazing job. Tanae has been officially the ADRC supervisor for about a month now. And she's already making great strides. So kudos today to you and to your team. Thank you. On the recruitment front for the Aging and Disability Resource Center, I'm really pleased to announce that Brian Joyner was selected to be for the vacant Human Services Clinician 2 position. Brian has been part of our Adult Protective Services as a contractor for the last year. And so we've gotten to kind of know him a little bit. So it was really exciting to be able to bring him on permanently and as part of our Aging and Disability Resource team. He's coming up to speed quickly and I'm sure that he's going to make a great impact as well. And we have begun the recruitment efforts for the Human Services Clinician 3, which is the team lead for the Aging and Disability Resource Center. So those efforts are underway. The Virginia Governor's Conference on Aging. We talked a little bit about that last month. It is scheduled for May 19th and 20th. It will be in Williamsburg at the Williamsburg Lodge. So those dates actually overlap with the May Commission on Aging meeting. And so after consulting with the chair and also the executive committee, we will not have a May Commission on Aging meeting this year. Okay. But definitely encourage everyone to consider attending the conference. They have not published the agenda yet or registration information, but from the B4 meeting, which I attended last week, that is coming very soon. So as soon as I get that, I will forward it out to all of you and more to come on that. All right, we've talked about our state audit, and that is just days away now. The state will be on site February 11th through the 13th. We've submitted a boatload of documents. I can't even tell you the exact number of documents that we've sent to them for review. But looking forward to them being on site and then having this in the rearview mirror. So let's see. NBAN is working with state groups to coordinate an Older Virginians Advocacy Day. And Erica and Terry Lynch are highly involved with that, as well as a few others from across the region. There are going to be more than 200 older adults from across the state descending on Richmond on February the 5th. They will take opportunities to meet with their delegations on both the House and Senate sides. They will attend after the assemblies kick in for the day. They will attend for a little while, and then they're going to a lunch where they'll meet with the governor and the attorney general. Those two are both confirmed, and I believe the lieutenant governor has also been invited to attend. So really excited about having this large group of older adults descend on Richmond and really advocate for things that are important for older adults across the state. And then finally, B4A, the Virginia Association of Area Agencies on Aging, which is the state group. 24 of the 25 agencies on aging come together quarterly to have a board meeting. We met last week, and one of the big topic was the budget amendment for the additional AAA funding, Agency on Aging funding. Senator Fagola and Delegate Mark Sickles have both sponsored bills in their respective organizations. And there will be opportunities coming up to advocate for having that funding added to the budget. Okay, so there will be more opportunities to come on that. With a follow-up, I'll send you some updated talking points. I'll send those, but if we get calls for speaking at hearings and that type of thing, I will let you all know. We'll definitely be looking for volunteers to. Roland, are you volunteering?
I'm volunteering.
Okay, awesome.
No, because it was fun last year.
Yeah, you did a great job last
Please
year.
count me
Yeah,
in.
a lot of fun. And then just really quickly, one of the speakers that we had was from this Louisa Fluvanna Cooperative, which is sort of the Charlottesville area. And as Danielle was talking about some of the home modification questions, and the resiliency, this particular cooperative is actually buying the rundown houses that older adults are occupying and either fixing them up or using the land to build other housing, affordable housing. And the person who had owned that house, is potentially moved into subsidized rental housing or something like that. It's actually a really neat project, and I'll send you the presentation from that. But it's this not-for-profit that is trying to go out and take these. I think it was your comment about some of the houses being really run down. So they may be beyond fixable, but they can, they can be turned into something that's safe and usable for that older adult and also benefit the community by, building some other housing. So I will send that presentation out to you, to all just take a look at, and, it might be something that at least from the housing committee's perspective, you might want to hear from them as well. So. All right, that's mine.
Great, okay, thank you, Helen.
Can I ask a quick question?
Yeah,
What are the issues for the Older Virginia Advocacy Day? Like, are there certain things that they're gonna be advocating for specifically, including the budget amendment that you mentioned?
So the budget amendment is on there. So they're sort of gathering each of the community's top priorities. So NVAN's priorities will be on there. As well as Peninsula Aging on Aging does a really nice job of pulling their priorities together. They're sort of merging all of it together, coming up with a one feature that everybody's in the top from.
So I think so each segment, there's a whole bunch of different people coming from different parts of the state, different groups. And each with their own legislators or whatever legislators are important for their plan. So for example, if our assisted living bill is still, it is considered on the Senate side, that would be a good. Definitely, the price and budget amendment, so that will.
All right, so thank you, Helen, thank you, Mahuna and Rachel, appreciate it. So, and Anthony, did you have anything to add on the NVAN legislation, Dave?
Yeah, do you want me to talk on, I was gonna talk on that when you called on me for the legislative committee. Do you want me to start?
Let's hold off on it.
All right.
Thank you. All right, I have 4 items for the chair's report. One, you saw a lot of needs and people asking for help. So please volunteer, please step up, either as individuals or areas that overlap with your committees. I saw things from health and wellness, legislation, housing. So yeah, please take the comments and reports into account, and we really appreciated JD coming and sharing his views. Second, age friendly. I'm not gonna repeat your priorities and accomplishments from last year. I'll send it over to Helen to incorporate into the monthly report, but thank you for all the hard work you're doing for the past year and for the coming year. Third item, so we'll be meeting with Rachel and Helen regarding attendance, meeting the FOIA requirements for electronic meetings, and we will work with you all to make sure that we have attendance and meet the quorum requirements, especially at committee meetings. So more to follow on that. And last but not least, Karen, I see she is online. We hope to hear about the appointment from the board tomorrow. And actually, I have a 5th item. So JD also mentioned about membership of various committees in Arlington. I know that the Park and Recreation Committee is looking for members, so if you want to contribute your perspective, whether as an older adult or some other perspective, please reach out to Park and Recreation and other commissions in Arlington. Also, the Washington Metro has a riders advisory board, and they're looking for members as well, so from the transportation people. All right, next, we're gonna go to committee and work group updates, and we have health and wellness at the top.
Yeah, our committee has not met again since I reported last month, so no new updates.
Okay, anything that we should keep an eye on, anything else?
Not from my perspective.
All right, Kasha?
No,
Okay. Housing, Audrey and Michael.
so we met weeks ago, is that right? We are now at every second month, so we're gonna have the same issue of not having a lot of updates, although we are keeping up with each other on email. We took a hard look at the age-friendly plan for this year's task. We've been looking at it at sort of the 5-year levels, and now we're drilling down. We got through some, we didn't even get through the whole plan. One of the things that matters, and I think Commissioner Spain kind of reinforced was the need to understand the population of older adults. And so we're looking at what data we have, what data we've presented to the commissioners before, and trying to figure out how to give them accurate update on the situation of older adults, particularly focused on housing. But if anybody else wants to add to that, it would be great to understand the bigger picture of older adults.
So Audrey, can I just challenge you with one thing as you're looking at what data would be useful? How would you use it then to add that to sort of the discussion of, if I had this piece of data, how would I use it? Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and I think we talked about that when we put that list together.
Okay,
So I can try to write that up
Yeah.
at some point, but
okay.
we do get asked for, you know, what's the population, how many really are in independent living? What is independent homes, apartments versus congregate living? And I don't think we even have I don't personally at the top of my mind have a clear picture of that.
Yeah.
Tanae talked about transitional housing, and she said there were 3 units. I don't know if there are 3, are there 4 for people facing eviction or homelessness?
So we have 4 dedicated kind of permanent units and then 3 transitional units.
3 transitional
Yes.
units. And if we can help by advocating for more funding for more units, 3 is a drop in the bucket. Let's talk about that. Next month, we'll have a deeper look at evictions. Tanae's going to give us a presentation on the situation about that. We are planning more in-person visits to residences. We did one in Fairfax County, was an APA facility. And we want to better understand and figure out what to do with the fact that Alexandria and Falls Church have different powers to push for affordable housing units than Arlington does. And see, that's an in-ban issue. But I think it's really important that we be able to get, particularly assisted living affordable units, critically needed in the county. So that's one of the legislative issues we want to look at. And we'll meet again in 2 months, but we're looking at the grants you sent out, was it Friday? Helen sent out.
Yeah.
Yeah, AARP.
Yeah.
To see if there's anything in housing that would make sense to apply for.
All right, thank you, Audrey. Anthony, legislative.
William, yeah, thanks. On the housing, real fast, we talked about homelessness, Audrey. I wanted to thank Commissioner Shaw for responding with some data related to that. So now on to the legislative committee. So we have an NVAN meeting tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. It's virtual. Anybody who doesn't have the link, feel free to email Helen. She can connect you to me, and I can get you information on that. We're watching a couple things outside of the NVAN 6 items, which are all progressing. I'm getting some updates. I just got an email from Michael, but all are either moving in some form or fashion with either a sponsor or someone who has committed. I'll have definite answers on the specifics tomorrow once we have the NBAN meeting. The February 5th Advocacy Day, that was our other agenda item. Most of the details have been mentioned, but there is that 2 p.m. lunch meeting with the governor, which I think is going to be important for us to establish a relationship with on the certain NBAN items that we feel could get to his desk to try to see if we can avoid any of those items getting vetoed. The other one we are watching, the other bill is the ADUs bill, which is in the process right now. And then I want to also mention the bill, the House bill for the villages. And Wendy, if you're still on, maybe you could mention just a few sentences on House Bill 315.
Sure,
where it's funding villages.
Sure, thanks, Anthony. There's so many great initiatives that we're trying to get funded. Another one that I just want to make sure people are aware of is an effort. There is an amendment pending. It's been submitted to support the growth of villages throughout the Commonwealth. This is not any one village in any one jurisdiction, but rather to talk about there being more villages throughout the Commonwealth where we can have more volunteers providing services that can reduce some of the burden that other AAAs like our own are finding from increased demand from older adults. So that is an initiative. It's an amendment that's been presented on both the House and Senate side. Fingers crossed that we continue to advocate for it. It doesn't get dropped from the signature box.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wendy. And that is all for the legislative committee.
So Anthony, can you just clarify, the NVAN meeting tomorrow is just the legislative updates, right? It is not the full NVAN meeting. That was last week.
That is correct. The NBAN meeting is tomorrow at 9:30.
But it's not the full NVAN meeting. It is just on the legislative priorities, correct?
Yes. It is the
Thank you.
advocacy committee meeting.
Yep. Okay, thank you.
All right, so long-term care, Charlie.
Thank you. Our committee met on January 19th. We had a very fascinating presentation on the long-term care equity index, something I had not known of before. It was developed by the Human Rights Campaign Foundation and SAGE. We had two speakers on that. This index is the first, it was based on the first validated survey of long-term care and senior housing facilities. It was, I think, motivated out of a 2021 report that they did, finding that only 18% of these communities had non-discrimination policies that included both sexual orientation and gender identity. So they worked on this more expansive way to measure. It's a voluntary index that facilities can use. And so we were very excited about it, and would like to see it used in all facilities in Arlington, and hope to promote that. We also had a presentation by Lisa Gooley of the Public Health on multi-resistant organisms, multi-drug-resistant organisms, MDROs as they're calling them, which have become more and more prominent of a problem in long-term care facilities. Most recently, neurovirus has gone around the county, and facilities have had to deal with that, and public health has done a great job working on that. And related, should I mention the Community Advisory Council? The second meeting of our new Cherrydale, or revived Cherrydale Community Advisory Council, met on the 15th of the month. At Cherrydale, we've had a very supportive relationship with Tremaine Goddard, their administrator of that facility, and worked on finalizing our comments on how to update the memorandum of understanding that was done 10 years ago. And I think we've got that pretty much down. The county county board has to approve that. We also talked about topics for the future, and a little bit on trying to figure out what a measurement of success of the Community Advisory Council would be, because we have a couple now in Arlington, and they're not common around the country, around the state. We may be in a unique position of developing them, and because of that, we'd like to kind of more formally define and evaluate them, so that if we think it's important, and that we could sell that idea through the literature and advocacy beyond Arlington. And did I miss anything, Manon?
Yeah. Thank you, Charlie.
All right, thank you, Charlie. And
I have a question.
yeah, question.
Charlie, the person from the Human Rights Campaign who spoke on the long-term disability index, is that someone at HRC who came and spoke to you guys on it?
The folks who spoke were Jane Haskell and Dan Stewart, and I'm not exactly sure of their affiliation. Are you?
Jane is Sage, and Dan is with HRC.
Do you know those things?
No, I didn't know, but, and the reason why I ask is I'm very curious, because I was trying to find information on the long-term care index, and their website was horrible on it. So it's good that they actually had someone to come and speak.
Yeah.
And it would be good if we could coordinate that with the Aging and Equity Committee, because that's something that I think is pretty much along the lines of to do with the LGBTQ plus community. And also, I think that is something that the commission in general should be doing, because I had previously chaired a commission that dealt with the Human Rights Campaign Municipality Index. And we took that, the commission took that index and worked with the county on it. We ended up getting a 100%. That's been at 100%, pretty much more than that for the last, I don't know, 5, 6 years. So it's something that I think the county has a record of working on, and it would be good if we could do that.
Yeah, your experience on the other that was very helpful.
So it would be good. So I'll talk to Carlos, get back to you, good much on that.
Great. All right.
Thanks.
Thank you both. All right, Catalina, transportation.
So the Transportation Committee met earlier this month. We talked a little bit about super senior taxi, following up on Claire's proposal to sort of, reassess that program and eligibility and all that. But in the discussion, we learned a lot and we're able to hear more of Claire's concerns, but also got good insights from Helen and others on, just the difficulty about gathering data about that program. And so, we're going to continue to kind of dig into that. But there are also some recent items in the news about, and things that Helen has heard as well, about STAR and Metro Access satisfaction. I think earlier in January, early December, there was an article about Metro Access and how, folks weren't happy with the service. And I know Helen mentioned that she's been hearing of some, late arrivals as it pertains to STAR. So we're trying to watch that very closely. So working closely with Helen on that. Then we also talked a little bit about the follow-ups out of the Social 60 Cafe outreach and thinking about getting more perspectives and continuing to listen to the community by perhaps going out to the independent living residences next. So more to come on that. We're also trying to think sort of on the data gathering angle again about, people's experiences getting to and from the Virginia Hospital Center. So we're trying to get a list together that we can share with you, Kate, on some questions that are more direct about, how we can maybe share information or learn from that. And then also the next meeting for the advisory group for Arlington's transportation future is actually tomorrow, and those are open to the public. So if anyone's interested, you can always join, but it's 7 to 9 p.m. at night. And I'll be sharing some of the inputs that I heard from you all about the goals for the future of transportation in Arlington. So thank you to everyone that submitted that. But the things that bubbled to the surface are, I think, unsurprising. It was, accessibility, safety, reliability, equity, some points about community, like integration and like outreach and things like that, making sure that whatever new transportation methods and things, options emerge in the future, making sure that's embedded within the existing infrastructure and always making sure people know about what's available to them. So probably more takeaways to come after that meeting, but that's it for me.
Okay, thank you, Catalina. Carlos is gone. Roland, do you want to give any update for aging equity?
No, I don't have any updates other than what's in the report.
Oh,
So, Carlos sent an email, putting this stuff out, but the Arlington Community Foundation met with the newly formed LGBTQ plus working group. The group is made up of diverse members of the community. Karen, who will be the newest commissioner, has agreed to serve. Is that part of the equity committee, or is that separate part of the community foundation?
Is that for Roland?
No, the community foundation is doing that as a separate thing. The Arlington Community Foundation in their efforts, but with the equity committee has been working with the Arlington Community Foundation, certain Carlos has.
Okay.
So it's not, for example, it wasn't in the plan,
Okay.
but it's something that has since come up. And so that it fits into our outreach. So that's what we're doing.
He said we're scheduled to defend our proposal to the equity grant on February 5th for the intergenerational bilingual book club. Roland continues to support the community ambassador program with Arlington Neighborhood Village. Exploring the possibility of submitting an ADRP community challenge grant, creating a linkage with the Alexandrian Commission on Aging to promote clinical trial recruitment efforts from the Walter Reed Army Institute. Success of opening up an opportunity for the American Lung Association to offer scholarships for Black faith group members to participate in smoking cessation programs. And then Dr. McKeon, who spoke to the Commission on Aging, recently did interviews with Aging Matters and Positive Aging. There's the Elder Law Day, which traditionally in the past took place on May 1st. There was a request about hosting one this year. The committee has decided to put efforts into hosting one in 2026. And then coordinating with Michelle Thomas, who we just heard from today, about a presentation on fraud.
Super. All right, so yes, so thank you, Carlos, via Rachel, and Roland as well. So yeah, thank you for all your hard work on it. A couple of items that reminded me. One, monthly reports don't just have to be on what your committee did. Anything you want to share with the group, that's your opportunity to do so. And we have our age-friendly plan. Plans are good, but the work behind it, like George Patton says, a mediocre plan violently executed is better than a first-class plan. So the work is important. All right, and including suggest speakers from topics that are important to you. All right. So do we have any other old business? Do we have any new business?
I just wanted to mention that the age friendly task force met like 3 weeks ago. A small group, Charlie, Audrey, and I. So we provided updates on the work that we're doing, and we also talked a bit about maybe a central location to kind of coordinate updates across all of the different committees and work groups. Just, because we sort of present it here, we present it to Age Friendly. So anyway, we're looking at different ideas to have one place where all these updates are stored. Yeah.
Super. Thank you so much. I know we had a lot of topics here today, but it was all great information, and it was great to have JB. Any announcements or updates that are left? So I want to thank everyone, and I look forward to seeing you all again next week. And have a great rest of your day. Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Next week.
Next month.
Okay. Next month.
Did I say next week? Next month.